What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Nathan Mansfield Show. It's been quite a while since I've been up on this platform. In fact, the crazy thing is the last time I was on this platform was with Jeramiah. So he was my ending podcast over a year ago, and he's my first podcast back on the show. Why? Because he's a good friend. I look up to this dude in leadership and business advice. He's helped me with so many things, and it's just an honor to bring him back on the show as my first podcast back. And now we'll be doing a weekly podcast, interviewing guests just about performance in business, performance in life. And it's what Jeremiah is best at. So we're going to have some awesome conversation here. Jeremiah, welcome. Thanks for joining me on the show, brother. I'm excited to spend the next 40, 50 minutes with you and just to pick your brain and have some awesome conversation about leadership, culture, and business. So welcome, brother.
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Nathan. Always like, our chemistry and, between the two of us, it's just, we always come out better after these conversations. And I know the audience will too. So I'm excited to be here, man.
Absolutely. So here's the little twist I'm going to put on this. A lot of times these types of podcasts or YouTube, whatever, they're very scripted, and I've got a list of questions. Today I've got nothing. What I want this to be is a conversation of curiosity from you to me and me to you, just as if there's things about you that I don't know, and there's things about you that I don't, or things about me that you don't know. And what I essentially want this to be is just this conversation, this dialogue of curiosity that's completely unscripted, and that we're just sharpening each other by conversations of experience, by conversations of stories, maybe even things that have happened to you that you've been involved in recently. And so we're just going completely off the script. We're going to have conversation. We're going to learn from each other and present that to an audience to help them be better as well. So you cool with that?
Yeah, I love it. I love the idea.
So the philosophy here is what I really want to talk about, because it's also your expertise, is leadership, culture building, business building. But likely it's going to go some different places too. I mean, and I'm completely cool no matter where this goes. I think that we're going to bring some educational value to people. And that's all I really care about at the end of the day, is that someone walks away going, I didn't know that, or I now have a solution to be better in my business or better in my family because of something I heard from Jeremiah and Nathan. So that's but just to bring back some history, Jeremiah and I have been friends for probably going on 3 years, somewhere around there. We're the kind of friends that don't need to talk to each other every day, but once we have a conversation, it's like we never missed a day, just because we're so like-minded. Jeremiah spent years in the Army as an Army Ranger with the Ranger Battalion. He's got a lot of tactical leadership advice that I think is very, very important to be shared with the business world, because it's very transferable. And what a better way to learn leadership than in the fire, right? Yeah. When I really look at my military experience, it was the most challenging, stressful situations that I had to emerge as a leader that I learned from. And a lot of those types of situations you can't get into in the business world, but it provides an opportunity for us to now look back, reflect, and say, man, I learned a lot in that situation. And now I can bring this to business professionals who aren't necessarily in the gunfight, but can teach them something that they can never experience just by my experience, right?
Yeah, well, it's like leadership is one of those things where, a lot of people don't want any responsibility, and I know you were probably like that. I was like that at a younger age, and you just want to take care of you. And then as you progress, like one of the things the military did for both of us is that, like you said, it forged us into leaders. It put us into positions that we didn't want to be in. And then we got more and more responsibility through that. Really, we were just playing scared. Like we didn't want to lose. And so we ended up succeeding in some way. And through that, we learned how to influence people, how to make them better. And as you get to the backside of that, as you get forged as a leader, you're like, you know what, man, the world needs more of this. You value it. And you get all that experience, and you just want to pass it down to everybody. And I think that's important to know, because a lot of people, they sit back and they want everybody else to do the leading. And there has to be this like passing of the torch that happens in our society. And the only way to do that is for people to step up and just accept the responsibility and understand that you're not going to be perfect along the way, but that if you seek that discomfort, you're going to be forged into the leader that is inside of you. And your family needs it. Your team needs it. Everybody needs it. And if you look around at the world right now, the freaking, the country needs it, man. We're living in a world full of just some weak ass leaders all over the place. Everybody's sitting back hoping that somebody else will step up and be a stronger leader, but we need to start building them now. And that's why this message is so important for everybody. So yeah, dude, I'm 100% behind you on this.
Yeah. A couple things you said is like, you have to step into the uncomfortableness, the uncomfortability of being a leader.
Yeah.
And that you have to just take responsibility. Those are two things that stood out that you said to me. And so like with you in your time in the Army, at what point did you realize that you needed to like, that you were kind of just playing it cool? And there was just probably a switch that flipped, that you were just like, okay, I need to get good at this because I suck right now. Like I had this moment I'll share with you in a minute, but I want to hear your story first.
Well, yeah. So I came into the Army. I was enlisted before I became an infantry officer, and I was an engineer. So I was in basic officer or basic training. And when I showed up, I got advice to be the gray man, to like not stand out. And so when I went in there, I just wanted to hide out and be a sheep essentially. Right. And I was naturally shy. And I was the guy that stood in the back of the classroom or sat in the back of the classroom, didn't really speak up. I wasn't this like natural born, charismatic leader that you would think that that you need to be in order to become a leader. I was this guy that just kind of like stayed away from all that stuff, even though I led my brothers at a young age. But anyways, when I went to basic, I remember we did the 2-mile run, and we did it to kick off basic training. They wanted you to run the 2 miles, and then they were going to put you in an ability group based off of your time. So I ran, and I remember having that voice in my head of, hey man, don't stand out, be the gray man, don't, whatever. And on my last lap, I was actually going pretty quick, and I didn't want to be placed into the higher performing group. So I slowed down. I turned around actually, and I started running backwards and started encouraging some of my friends and just kind of bullshitted and was laughing and stuff like that. And I remember pacing myself so that I would come in to be with the slower group, B group, instead of A group. And as I went through basic training, I was with B group the whole time. And I just started getting really, really frustrated at everybody around me because I was coasting with them and we just weren't trying. And I remember feeling impatient. Right. And I was like, man, I'm impatient. So anyways, I ended up finishing basic training and I scored a 299 on my APFT instead of a 300. Okay. And that was like it really bothered me because 300 was the way you maxed out the PT score. And I was like one freaking point short, one freaking point. But it symbolized my lack of giving a shit going into basic training. Right. I didn't put my best foot forward from day one. Had I done that, I probably would have maxed the PT test. And so being 1 point short set me off. And when I went to advanced individual training, I made a commitment in that segment of my military career to not be the gray man anymore. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just raise my hand. I'm going to be with the fast group. And it came from just being disappointed with myself and from coasting and playing it easy. And I think a lot of people can relate to that message,
Yeah, man. I love when we have these conversations and I learn things about you that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because no kidding, dude. I have the exact same story from basic training.
Yeah.
Literally, like the only thing that was different was I didn't turn around. Yeah. But same thing, like the advice I got going into basic training, don't be if they don't know your name, you're doing well, right?
Right.
Right in the middle of the pack. Like I wasn't the shitbag, but I also wasn't the high performer. Yeah. But it was on a run where they were categorizing us into different groups where I knew I was huffing it. And I knew I was at the front and I literally slowed down so I wouldn't be recognized. That's the craziest thing. Like,
and you see that all the time in probably in business too. You probably see that where people like pace themselves, or you see it in the workforce for sure. I know I've seen it in the workforce where people like kind of pull themselves back and they don't want to shine and they don't want to like be out in front, and it really messes people up.
Do you feel like there was ever a point where you went from like being the gray man until all of a sudden like people started noticing you because you're a high performer naturally, just as I am? And then was there a point where you kind of got addicted to that attention?
So with me, like when at basic training, I wanted to be the gray man. And I did that with, I pulled myself back in terms of like my physical capabilities, but the instructors, after about a week, they pulled me out and made me a student leader. And, I was pissed off about that, and they probably did it because I was trying to hide out. Right. So they grabbed me and I end up not wanting to fail the whole time. And so I'm like a pretty good student leader. And so this kind of theme happened to me a lot growing up. It happened to me a lot in ROTC. It happened to me a lot of basic training. My entire life was kind of like people pulling me out and putting me up front, and me being kind of pissed off about it and nervous and not wanting to fail. And then I got to a position in my enlisted career where I was overseas in Iraq, and I wanted to be a leader because I saw what you could do as one. I got tired and pissed off at basically being told to shut up and color all the time. And for me, it was a little bit of rebelliousness. I said, you know what? I'm not going to be like told to go into my place. I'm going to get into a position where I can influence, I can make a difference. And I'm going to try to do a better job than every motherfucker that's told me to stay in my place. And so for me, it was my leadership was born out of a little bit of immaturity, a little bit of resentment and that type of thing. And wanting to make a difference and impact the lives of the people around me, because I didn't like the way that I was necessarily being treated at the time. And to be honest, I was taking a lot of things personal, and I was just immature. Honestly, when I look back on it, my leaders were actually doing a pretty good job. I think I was just taking some things personal that I didn't have to take personal. And so for me, it became that was the catalyst. And then it did become addicting. It did become addicting, not necessarily the attention and the position, but what I could, the harder I worked and the better I got at leadership, the more I saw the results of others around me change, and I became addicted to that. And winning for yourself is great. Especially if you come from, low self-esteem and doubt and a lot of insecurities. When you start succeeding and you start getting some victories for yourself, it feels really good, man. But what's better than that is when you start influencing others to succeed. And that is phenomenal. So I got really, really addicted to seeing others succeed. And that's actually what caused me to get out of the military and get into entrepreneurship, because I hit a ceiling basically. And I wanted to hey, I got to remove this ceiling, impact as many people as possible. I don't know if that was like that for you or if there's some parallels there for you.
I swear we're brothers at heart, because we have our story, like same thing in Iraq, 2007 or 2008 is when I learned that I needed to be a leader. It's where, but it was also spoken out of immaturity. I remember we were sitting in a meeting, and it was because there was chaos breaking out between, people were sleeping with each other. Like nobody was following, everybody was unruly. It was just a really bad time. I remember sitting in this wooden building in Iraq, and our E8 was trying to figure out what was going on. And finally I got so tired of the crap that I just piped up, and I was like, everybody just needs to do what you're supposed to do, like stand up. And everybody looked at me like I was an idiot. I remember being humiliated. My face turned red because I was so tired of people bickering and arguing about everything, that I just finally said, just get up and do the damn job. Do what you're supposed to do. And everybody's nice one, Mansfield, that's really solving the problem. And I felt humiliated, man, because it was the first time I stood up and said something, because I was always just the guy in the back.
Yeah.
So similar type of thing. But, the reason I bring that up is because it can go, especially if you came from a background of low self-esteem like you and I, where you didn't quite fit in and you didn't have a lot of confidence growing up. And all of a sudden, you start to emerge in this confidence. We both have this story where we start to emerge, we gain strength, we gain confidence. And all of a sudden now everybody's eyes are on us.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened for me. All of a sudden, everybody's I want him on my team. Everybody's he's the fastest guy. He's the one that doesn't quit. Right. And so everybody, all eyes are on you. And then the pride starts to come up. And it's I was able to control my pride and an outward expression. I wasn't super boastful about it, but inside I was feeling so good about all the accolades and all the awards and all this stuff.
It changed your identity. It changed your identity for sure. Right. How did you see yourself before you were a leader? And then when all the attention was on you, how did you see yourself? There's probably, I don't know if it did this for you, but it did this for me. When people started expecting more from me when I became a leader. And through that, even if it wasn't direct feedback from the person, I had it in my head that people expected more from me all the time. And I kept trying to do a better job because I just didn't want to let people down. Was it like that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Because I had something to uphold, and I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want to let my image down, So does it work for success and for growing and for doing more? Yeah. But I think that what I learned over time was that it was just a lot of pride within me, that I was having my pride tank filled all this time. And that really I still felt very unfulfilled and moments that I wasn't getting accolades or I wasn't being recognized. And so I had to learn how to balance that pride a little bit later on, because I was like, well, I'm just being fueled by pride and by being the strongest guy and by being the fastest guy and by being the one that always gets the job done. Like I had all this pride about, I'm that guy, right? You want me on your team, which is a good thing. Like you want that. Like that's the kind of people that we want to work for us, right?
Yep.
But as long as like we're not feeling this sense of fulfillment from the pride that gets us, because I think, and I'm be curious to hear your opinion, that over time that's very unfulfilling, and it'll probably kind of lead you to make decisions that aren't right for you.
Yeah, you're talking about the difference between being selfish and selfless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like being selfish, it can get you rocking, right? Like when I wanted to be an entrepreneur way back when I first started, what was I after? I wanted to be rich, man.
Yep.
I wanted to be rich. And what is that? That's selfish. And what ended up happening is I chased that path and I ended up broke over and over and over again because I was chasing it for selfishness. But as soon as I switched to service, then all the wealth started coming. It's like, oh, and I started actually helping people and actually helping them get results. And it was like, it kept filling my cup, making me feel really good about myself. Plus I was getting the results that I was looking for. So it's funny how that works.
Yeah. Sandy and I, we were out on the trail, like doing some drone shots and stuff earlier today. And we were talking about this, and I was like in your heart is the true testament to everything. Because a lot of people are like, entrepreneurs, like, I don't care about getting rich. I just want to help people. But you're like, bro, when someone's just trying to get rich, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't lie to yourself either. Like I tried to there was a big part of like, when I was getting very financially wealthy, that I was like, oh, I want to serve other people, but truly, man, I just want to get rich. And I was lying. and they're like, you feel like a piece of shit when you constantly lie. So like, I was kind of trying to figure this out this morning. Like, at what point did your heart posture change that was like truly about service and not about getting rich? Do you remember like that point and where you just started to invest in people rather than like try to fill everything up for yourself?
That switch happened to me when I got coaching and mentoring. Is when the switch happened. When I started off in entrepreneurship, I had switched over to becoming an infantry officer. I had tried to buy my first house and the bank told me no. They said, hey, you got your debt to income ratio sucks. You don't have enough money in the bank. No. And so when I get rejected, I want to do something about it. Right. And for me, that was hey, you can't get this. And so I said, all right, well, screw you. This is the first time in my life I haven't been able to financially get something that I've wanted, that I really, truly want. Not only am I going to get it, but I'm going to become wealthy as hell. Like I'm going to become rich as fuck. And so that put me on a trajectory to go chase money. And it was because of that rejection. Well, I was managing full-time military career, plus trying to figure out some side hustle things, trying to figure out how to get some money to come into my life. I tried day trading stocks. I built a drop shipping company. I developed an app. I did a bunch of shit like that. All the natural, like get rich quick things that you get fed. Right. And so I tried that, and I was basically just had all this work ethic and all this intensity inside of me, but it wasn't directed. And then I met a mentor. I said, you know what? I put my ego aside. I said, I'm going to get some help. I'm going to get somebody in my life that knows what they're doing. I'm going to stop acting like I can get to this result myself. Reached out, got some coaching and mentoring. And that's when he started asking me, Major Steel, he started asking me some really, really deep questions about what my mission was in life and what my purpose is. And I'll never forget the first thing that he told me. After I explained to him my frustrations about building wealth outside of the military, and he just paused, and he had gotten coached in person by Zig Ziglar every single day for almost 2 years.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. And so this man, Major Steel, he sat me down and he said, I was telling my frustration. He said, Jeremiah, listen, you can get everything you want in life if you just help enough people get what they want. And he said, that's what Zig taught me, and that's what I'm going to teach you. And when he said that, a light went off in my head. And I said, I realized that I've been building all these things, trying to appear like I'm doing it for good reasons, right? Like I built a drop shipping company and there was a mission tied to that. And I just built in the mission because I thought it was cool, but it wasn't really in my heart. And he said that, and I really started looking at everything that I was doing. And so that shifted for me tremendously. And I said, okay, let me just focus on helping people, solving problems. It's in my name, I guess, right? Solving problems. And that's when everything switched. I mean, I announced my business with him, and day one that I announced it, I made money day one, and it was like a huge trajectory change for me.
Yeah. So this is a huge lesson learning lesson for the audience is that, like, it takes a while and maybe a process to change your heart and your intentions. But the truth is that if your sole intention is to get rich, to make it financially wealthy, that likely you're going to have a lot of speed bumps, and you may get there at some point. But I think that you're going to be truly fulfilled, because of the fulfillment that I know that you probably get by coaching the people that you do and seeing their success is something that money could never provide you.
And it's a fuel tank. It's a fuel source inside of you. You know, when you are working towards something that you're in love with, and that you want to do a good job so that others can succeed too, or get the results that you're working on. What ends up happening is you've been doing 16-hour days for a year, Monday through Sunday, non-freaking stop. And that purpose, that fulfillment, it gives you the energy, it gives you the fuel to have you keep going. When you're just chasing money, man, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. You're going to have a lot of like peaks and valleys. You're going to work yourself to get motivated. You're going to do a really good job. Maybe you can leverage some competition. Maybe you can leverage competition to really get yourself going. You're going to hit your goal, and then you're going to cool off. You're going to go right back where you started. I see this all the time with people that are only financially driven. And the thing is I just did an Instagram story on this morning. I said, with every goal that you have, you need to have a logical and emotional reason that you're attached to it. Okay. The logical reason is I want to improve my situation. I want to have more money. I want to be financially free. That feels pretty good. But if I have an emotional reason, I'm trying to provide for my wife, my kids, my family, my legacy. I want to impact the world before I die. And I really start feeling it in my heart. That's the perfect combination. And you won't have those ebbs and flows, those peaks and valleys, as much as somebody that only has the logical.
That's so true, man. Because we're driven from, you need both. Like, you need logic and emotion.
Yeah.
And this is cool, so cool, because we're covering so many topics that we've been talking about. Like we talked about like passion, and like a lot of people do businesses for money, but they're not passionate about it. And my answer to that was like that you'll never be fulfilled, and that you're going to go through this peaks and valleys, this roller coaster ride, because you don't have enough energy. You literally said the exact same thing I just said yesterday. It's like, it doesn't give you the fire will not burn as hot when you're driven by money or by ego or by pride or by proving someone wrong, as it does when you have true passion and conviction to what you're connected to. Yeah. Like when you're there, nothing can stop you.
Yeah. Like, how many times have you had a bad day and you didn't, and you're in a position now where you could choose to not go into work, right? And a lot of leaders get to a position like that where they can pick and choose. They have the autonomy, they have the freedom. And when you get to choose, there's nobody breathing over your shoulder, nobody looking at you, and you wake up and you're tired, you're cranky, you don't want to go in, and you're like, you're debating, should I just take the day off or should I not? My guess is that you probably think about others, you think about them, and that gets you up and gets you going. And this ties into the fulfillment piece. Serving them is what's driving you, and it gets you going, right? That's the prime example. Probably happens in your life.
Absolutely. And so it's like the nature of your business. One of the things that I'm going through right now is that I don't have near of a connection and passion towards my nutrition company as I did 10 years ago. Like, my life has just changed. My motives has changed. My industry has changed. Like talking to people like you, coaching people, helping people is where I naturally, I could wake up at 3:00 in the morning and do it and be excited to do it. But I'm going through a phase in my life right now where I'm working from home. I'm building my nutrition company, and I'll walk out here, I'll grab a cup of coffee, I'll sit on the couch and be like, I don't feel like doing shit today. And some days I don't. You know why? Because I don't have that same passion for the nutrition industry like I used to. Because I just don't see, like, when I speak to people like you and when I coach people and I talk to people with true emotion and conviction in my life, like, I can feel a shift in them, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's like a shift that I feel. But like in the nutrition industry, it's like, well, I can provide you with a supplement, but then you need to go do the work. Yeah. And I don't like, hopefully I can motivate you to work a little bit harder, but there's not a lot of emotion in that. So
yeah, well, it's tough. It's part of, and that's one of the challenges with being a leader, right? Is getting yourself, influencing yourself, leading yourself in moments where you're having difficult times, and buying into the current mission that you're in. Like, I always say that the first sale is to yourself, right? When you're dealing with sales, it's the same thing in leadership. If I'm going to be influencing others, I have to be convinced that I'm leading them in a good direction. And leaders are allowed to evolve. I think that some people, like, they beat themselves up when maybe things change internally to them. And I think that all that really has to happen in that moment is your purpose has to get upgraded. That's it, right? It's almost like doing the same workout routine over and over and over again. Eventually you go in there, you're not getting sore anymore. You really don't see any muscle growth. And it's like, okay, we just need to upgrade the workout. It's not that I want to stop working out. I just need to do things a little bit differently and tie everything into what I'm currently doing to make it feel good again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel that. I'm in that same place in my fitness right now too. I'm bored, man. I'm like, that's why I'm like, man, I gotta go fight or something because I need to train for something that's like, like I need to train for something that's gonna get me excited than just like going out to my garage or going to the gym and just, pounding away at the weights like I've been doing for the last 15 years. It just, my purpose has changed though too. And I think that's what a question I want to pose to you is like, have you seen chapters in your life in which you were fueled by something and your purpose was in something, and then it's almost like there's a flip of the switch and you no longer have connection to that thing that was like maybe fueling you for a long time?
Give me an example.
So for me, like I look at I had a military chapter of my life where I was really fueled by the success. Like I wanted to go get in gunfights. Still this day I do, but it's just not anymore.
Yeah.
I liked the chaos, and I was driven by the chaos, and I was driven by being the best I could be in the military. And then there hit a point where I was like, oh, it's not really for me anymore. Like there's a higher calling. And so I flipped the switch, and then I became a full-time entrepreneur. And so I lived that life, and I built some very successful companies. But now I'm going through this, like, it's almost like I'm chapter 3 of my book where I'm like, it's not doing it for me anymore. Like, it's just not the same. Like these companies that I'm involved in are just not fueling me the way it used to. And so I'm feeling a crazy shift in my life. That's like, like you just coached me for a couple months. And like, when you were coaching me, I had this resistance, like, we're like, here's all the things we need to do. And like, you're incredible at what you do. But I had this like hole in my stomach, almost like I'm fighting, like I'm swimming up river, like just trying to get my breath. And what I didn't realize until this moment is that I'm just fighting my purpose.
Yep.
Because there's another chapter in my life that's ready to unlock, which is what I'm stepping into now.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that in a lot of ways. And here's what happens with people from what I've seen and from the people I've coached when it comes to that type of scenario. And when it comes to losing their juice, that's essentially what we're talking about, right? We want to be juiced all the time. That's the greatest feeling in the world. Hey man, I feel fired up and ready to go. And I don't want to have to pound some caffeine to do it. I just want to be just rocking and rolling. Yeah. What ends up happening, at least this happened in my life, you set out these milestones, and when the journey for somebody that maybe is insecure, has doubt, and they start succeeding, they start casting a vision for themselves. Okay. And most people do this when they have their first dream. They cast a vision, and if they choose to go after it, they start getting really, really excited. They go through the ups and downs. They go through the failures. They go through the successes, and they get very, very close to that dream. And until the day they become it, their entire world is in harmony with that vision that they held in their mind. Okay. Their entire reality, they're wearing the uniform that they had in their head. They're talking to the people. They're walking just like that. And what happens is they get to that destination, and the vision hasn't expanded yet. So usually what you see, or what I've seen, is after we've caught the first dream, we got there may be a lack of purpose, a lack of fulfillment, a lack of desire. But the real problem is that we're searching for the next vision. And once the vision comes in, it starts growing and expanding again, and then we can chase it. So the common thread in chapters and this ebb and flow to a person's evolution is in vision casting. That's the common thing. And then really what they're after is it sounds so cheesy, but they're chasing their potential. It's the expansion of their being. Okay. So I've already been this previous person. I need to be somebody more. I need to be something greater. And once I connect to that, I can get off to the next, I can start off to the next race. But if I'm feeling resistance in what I know I need to do, and I can't get myself to go do it, chances are it's not true to the vision that I have for myself right now. And so I need to set it up so that I can transition to the new vision, and I can move. And there's a lot of different ways to handle that scenario, where you can either you cut the old thing, or you bring it along with you and you just upgrade it inside of your mind as well. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Is if you're in a funk, and maybe you've got some momentum in your life before, you've had some victories, you've had some wins, and even if you haven't, have that vision for yourself that's exciting, that's pulling you, and spend some time like really, really just romanticizing it and fantasizing, because that's what human beings were. We were not meant, we are creators. We were not meant to be worker bees. Okay. Human beings are, we can do so much, man. And we were born with this great gift called imagination. And when you're a kid, life is so exciting. Life is so exciting. And why? Because you're operating out of imagination and intuition all the time. And then as you evolve and you grow, you stop activating that stuff. You start listening to everybody else. You start using your logical brain and listening to and putting yourself in the box that society puts you in. And you get taught not to entertain that stuff. Well, the people that succeed in this world, the highest level, they're not those type of people. They're the people that succeed are the Elon Musk, the Steve Jobs, who are living out of imagination, living out of intuition, and then they're backing it up with the logical next steps. So that's the solution.
Dang, that's huge, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is practical advice for someone who's like maybe working a job that they're just like, you know what, this is my dream job. I wanted to be a CPA. I wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to be this. And I've been doing this for 5 years and I'm kind of unfulfilled and I don't really know what to do. Like, I think that everybody goes through that phase. Right. And so what you're explaining is exactly what I'm going through too. And probably many other people is like, there's this uncomfortability in your gut that you feel when you're there. And the advice is then that you need to dream on what's the vision for the next thing for you. Start to, really figure that out, because if you just stay stuck in that, I can't imagine this feeling that I've been feeling for the last year. I can't imagine doing this any longer than I have, because it's like, I've been close to just saying like everything that I've done in my past, just go away. Like, I don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. It's not practical, right?
Yeah.
I've built successful businesses. I need to do something with them, hand them off to someone that's maybe more passionate than me about it, right?
Yeah.
And there's a transition for that, but like it's an important conversation, because so many people will go through that. And the advice that you gave is excellent. It's just that you need to cast that next vision and we have to be excited by something every day of our life. I truly believe that. Otherwise, like what's life without the feeling of, like, there are going to be times in your life that are just storms that like suck, that you're not excited, and you have to endure that. But the truth is, like, the thing that fuels you is going to be that fire and that excitement.
The reason why people get to that position that you're talking about, where they get a little bit of stability and they're on the verge of maybe they're a little bit successful in their career, right? And they feel dead and empty inside, right? Mm-hmm. One of the main reasons why they start to feel that way is because of how they've been conditioned. Okay. Mm-hmm. Ever at a young age, you're taught to not want things, to only take what you need. Okay. You're taught that wants are bad, needs are good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what that teaches you is to repress your wants. Right. When I'm going through a chapter in my life, maybe I took the traditional path. I went to school, went to college, I got a job, I grinded it out. And I even worked my way through a couple of tiers inside of that job. And now I'm getting paid pretty good. And I feel kind of dead inside. And I'm like, man, what the hell? This is it. Well, what's really happened is I've taken a path that's conducive to my needs. I need a job. I need to be a provider, so on and so forth. I never really stopped and asked myself, what the hell do I want? Mm. Okay. And so when you're in that position, I actually just brought somebody into Conquer Academy in this exact position. Just having to talk to him about this. And he was feeling exactly like you're talking about, that emptiness that comes inside all of us. And the first thing that I started asking him was like, what do you want? And you know how hard that question is for people to answer? When you ask somebody, what do you want? They'll give you some general answer. They'll talk around it. It won't be clear. Okay. So what that's an indicator of is that they haven't given it any attention. They haven't given it any time. And we started talking about a lot of different things. I've talked to people about power. I've talked to people about wealth. I've talked to people about sexual exploration. I've talked to them about all these different taboo things that we're told not to talk about. And I said, you need to think about all these things. You don't have to share them with me, but you need to think about what you truly, truly want. And allow yourself to be unshackled from this thing that society is holding you down with. They're putting you in this prison cell, and then know what you want. Okay. So once you do that, and all a person really has to do is, I know you're a spiritual man, is God's going to tell you what you want.
Yeah.
You shut everything off, listen to yourself. God's going to come to and through you. He's going to tell you exactly what you want. He's going to guide you. If you can listen to that voice, and if you're not a spiritual man, if you're not, you don't believe in God, listen to your intuitive voice inside of you. You will guide yourself through this process. So your wants will be revealed. Okay. Now, the next thing you have to do here, if you want to get out of this rut that we're talking about, you're in, is you want to romanticize that and create a fantasy. Okay. Go Elon Musk. Can I get to Mars? Create this vivid vision inside of my mind and turn it into a fantasy. So what happens when you fantasize is, if you think about it long enough, it turns into theory. Okay. The fantasy turns into theory. A theory means you start thinking of all the ways you could actually accomplish it. Theory turns into results. So fantasy, theory, results. And that you can do that over and over and over again, and to pull yourself out and get exactly what you want.
It's like, it starts with like a what if, and then it starts with a how can I?
Yeah.
How can I? Like, it's like, well, it starts as like it's very like taboo. It's very like just out there. Then it's like, well, what if? Your mind goes, what if? And then it translates into how can I?
Yeah, exactly. If I stare at something long enough, I'm going to challenge it.
Yeah.
If I think about something about myself, like if you have a bad belief about yourself and you want to undo that belief, all you have to do is think about that belief repeatedly. And eventually you start challenging the way that you think about it. Right.
Yeah. That was one of the bigger pieces of advice I heard from someone. I don't remember what it was, who it was, but it was like, we're always doubting ourselves and what we're capable of. Like, for me, for sure. Like,
yeah,
I always thought I'd never make it anywhere in life, right? I was always doubting myself, and I've always fought that battle of like self-doubt. And so like when your brain says I can't, you immediately need to switch it to how can I? So change the statement of I can't to the question of how can I? Because then it opens your mind and it goes, I have to start thinking of possibilities, practicalities, like how can I actually make this happen?
Yeah. And even take the pressure off yourself too. Sometimes people have a hard time seeing themselves achieve whatever it is inside of their head. So if they say, hey, how could I? That might be even, they might subconsciously still block themselves from seeing that victory. So if they could see somebody else doing it, right? Hey, how could somebody else that's in my situation succeed? They start building that image, and then they can replace that person with themselves inside of their mind. It's a little bit easier to transition, but yeah, 100%, dude. Absolutely.
It makes total sense. The next thing I want to touch on is like something that was very challenging for me. Having 12 employees, mostly all Gen Z from the age of 18 to 25, 26. Gen Z is known to be the entitled generation, the generation that expects a lot and doesn't want to give a lot. Like, what is practical advice for a leader who, because Gen Z is also very talented. They're like with technology, they're like, even just talking to Sandy here, for like, he knows way more than I do about social media, the future of technology. Like, I'm like, I need to surround myself with people like him more, because I'm learning so much. But like, leading Gen Z can be challenging, especially if they've been coddled and babied and given trophies for everything. So what is one way that you find success in leading Gen Z, younger, young teen, or, older teens, young 20s, when there's that much entitlement, kind of at the beginning of the forefront?
Yeah. And this is tough, because in leadership, what ends up happening when you have your team, especially if it's a smaller team, as you're rocking and rolling, right? You care a lot about them, and you want to do things that show that you care. And if you're in a company, what that typically shows up as is paying them well. Yep. So you want them to come in, and you're going to probably overpay them, especially if you're new, and you're going to pay them. You're shaking your head. Yeah. Yeah. So, and you think, and that's coming from your heart. You're like, listen, I like you. I think this is a great place for you. Right. But if you help somebody too much, they never grow. They never improve. And so what you end up doing is handicapping them. You're saying, hey, here's your lifeline. And leaders are all over the place are guilty of this. And so the entitlement generation that comes in, maybe you have that person that you're excited about, you've been hunting for them all over the place, and they finally show up, and it's like, okay, I'm going to pay you well. I expect you to do a good job. Well, they start to underperform. And then what ends up happening is they get conditioned to the amount that you're paying them, and they're conditioned to get that amount for the underperformance. And so what they never really develop the ability to do is to be responsible for their own results and remove the ceiling over their head and keep climbing. So it's tough love is really the answer. Okay. So when it's somebody like this that comes in, you want to give them a fair price if we're talking about payment, but you want to set them up for success. But the job of the leader is to remove the ceiling that's over them in any way that you can. So if you're in the military, it's not keeping them in the position that they're in. It's laying out a path that they can take to get out of that position into the next school, and always see a way for them to grow, and saying like, listen, I'm going to lay out the path. I'm going to remove the ceiling from you. I'm going to set you up to succeed, but I'm not going to hand you stuff. So basically the simple answer is to do the things that they should have been doing their whole life, but as grown adults, right? So the other part of this that's challenging is that with that generation is that they might not understand. They might see it as that they're being set up to fail. Okay. So the key to helping somebody grow through those evolutions is just articulating the why and then giving them the resources. So coaching them along the way becomes more valuable. So my approach with a lot of people is pay them less, make it performance related, and then coach them along the way. Hey, where are you stuck? Why are you challenged? Hey, where are you stuck? Why? And then have them self-assess along the way. Why are you coming up short? Why are you doing well in this area, not in this area? And through that, they learn to lead themselves and keep going. That's my short answer, my long answer, I guess.
No, that's good. Cause that's exactly the problems that I run into in my past is I think part of me too is that like I grew up broke. So I always wanted to overpay people because I don't want them to feel the feelings of being broke.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to take care of my people by paying them well. But like one of the things that I learned is like everybody that I overpaid at the start underperformed, and I always got animosity towards them.
Yep.
I was like, they never lasted. But everybody that I started at 12 to 15 bucks an hour and I made them earn their way to promotions were always my best employees.
Yeah. When you give them the resources, they don't learn to be resourceful.
Right.
And like, I'm even doing this with my team right now. I got a couple of guys on the team that I've changed a couple of things to tighten up on them. I said, hey, listen, I expect you guys to grow and you're just doing what I'm telling you to do. You guys aren't innovating. I want you guys to be mini entrepreneurs in the company. And I said, so here's how I'm going to force that out of you, because I want the best from you. And I changed some things around with them. Right. And then they start, but I explained to them what they're doing. And then I'm very, very invested in coaching them along the way. I went on to, I didn't tell them to do anything. I didn't give them any tactics to get their results, but I'm scrolling through, TikTok the other day, just checking on my stuff. And one of them started a TikTok. Okay. And really he started it to build his own personal brand. And he figures if he builds his own personal brand, he can get to some of these other goals that he has in mind inside of the company. But he never would have done that had I kept handing him the resources to be successful and not allow him to kind of figure it out on his own. So I think that for every leader, you just have to realize whether or not you're helping too much, or if you're allowing that person to figure some stuff out as they go. That's the key solution.
Yeah, because I think you're absolutely right. Because also when you give them all the resources, then they begin to expect it and they don't learn to think for themselves.
Yep.
Or, like I would rather have an employee, like my best employees have been the ones that I kind of coached and mentored, but I could give them something. And I don't know if you learned this in the military, but there was very few percentage that did this. What I learned is like, I always had a good senior NCO that's like, if I went to them, they're like, you better, if you're coming to me with a problem, or if you're coming to me not knowing what to do, you better have researched it enough before you came to me.
Yeah.
And so I learned that at like 21 years old. Like,
yeah,
before I come asking questions, like I better at least try to figure it out on my own.
My platoon sergeant used to say, the soldier would come in and ask some question like that. He would say, oh yeah, what did Google say? So he would say to him.
Right. Just, people want to be spoon fed everything, right?
Yeah.
You all want these answers. But like, you can't train your employees to just come to you for everything, because then they're at your desk every 10 minutes. How do I do this? What should I do for this? And they become overly reliant upon you. And that's the opposite of what we want in business, is people that are over reliant on us, because then we're spending all of our time teaching them what they need to go learn on their own.
Yeah. The solution for a leader in that example, if you're in a situation where your guys are coming to you a lot of the times asking for next steps and what to do, and you're giving them the tactics, you're giving them exactly what to do. The change that you can do is two things. One, give them a message that embodies your core values. Okay. So basically, Major Steele, what he did to me, I would come to him with a challenge And I'd say, hey, sir, I'm not really sure, blah, blah. What do you want to do here? What do you want to do here? What should we do with this mission? Blah, blah, blah. And he'd say, J Saul, he used to call me J Saul. J Saul, do what you think is right.
Mm.
And I would be like, what kind of cop out answer is that, man? I want your advice, right? But what he was doing was he was instilling a value inside of me. And instead of answering that one problem, he was giving me a compass. He was saying, hey, you're going to do what you think is right. And that way, when I'm not around, you can still guide yourself to the next point. So it's using that situation to reinstill your core values is the main thing. And I would have them training them to think outside of you're using that as an opportunity to train them to think outside of your interactions. That's the biggest thing. The other thing is your core values. You got to instead of a lot of people like solve the problem, they solve the issue instead of controlling and addressing the conversation that leads to the result. Okay. So correcting the behavior essentially instead of the task.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So like small example is had an NCO that was working with me over in Poland, E6. She came to me one day. She says, I'm having a tough time with this team that I had, same type of people that you were talking about, the same generation, right? And she's like, I told them to make sure this barracks room were clean. I go in there, it's half-assed, windows are still up, it's not ready to go like I wanted. And I start correcting them about the windows, the cleaning and stuff like that. I said, you don't want to do that. I said, what you want to do is you want to talk to them about the values that they compromised on. You want to talk about excellence. You want to talk about integrity. You want to talk about doing the right thing, about being a high-performing team, all the things that you want them to carry with them on and off duty. And if you do that, it takes care of the windows and everything else that you're working on.
That's huge, man. You just gave me a huge pointer as a father. Because I often correct behavior. Like, hey, don't do that. Get out of that.
Or tasks. Yeah, correct tasks instead of behavior.
We're constantly correcting behavior when we need to correct on values.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. So you're saying we're saying the same thing. Instead of correcting the task, adjust the behavior, right? And the way you adjust the behavior is by speaking the values into them. Yeah.
Yeah. There's depth in values.
Yes.
There's not depth in like, hey, it's like when your parents told you no, and you're like, why? Because I said so. Well, there's something deeper there, because obviously if I go to my friend's house who just drinks alcohol, we're going against your values, our family values that are that we're not going to do illegal things, right? Or whatever that thing is, right? So yeah. If my parents would have raised to me that way, it would have been a little different.
And that, with kids, you have an awesome opportunity. A lot of parents do, especially between the ages of 0 and 7, right? Like as the newborns and all the way to 7, because they're primarily operating out of subconscious programming. Okay. Which means that subconscious programming is the software system that you're installing into them. So if we're going to program a computer, humans behave the same way. So the reason why people make decisions, you and I make decisions the way we've made them, is because of the subconscious programming that's inside of us. Okay. And the way that you influence the subconscious is through repetition. Okay. And kids, like as you get past the age of 7, you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. So you can do a little more thinking. You can rationalize, you can use your 5 senses to make decisions. Whereas a kid, you're operating purely out of subconscious programming. What people are telling you is okay and isn't okay. So if you never give them the values and you only tell them, don't do this, don't do that, well, they're learning to behave, learning how to operate out of fear and an invisible prison that they're in versus operating from a place of values. They just know, like, here's an example. You were told probably not to jump on your bed as a kid, right? Why, right? There's no real reason. People were just told not to do it. So, but what ends up happening is you create these rules in the household. Kids told not to jump on the bed, not to jump on the coffee table. So what happens? The kid puts himself inside of those boxes. And every time he goes to jump on the coffee table, he thinks, no, that's not okay. Right? It's a rule. But if I want the kid to be a freedom-seeking, adventurous type of human being, I need to explain to him the why behind it and then reinstore it with the values. I need to say, listen, that could break. I want you to be adventurous. We value X, Y, and Z. But when you start giving people just the rules, everything they interact with, they stop doing that. They put a wall up around it. It's like, and your body will physically start responding to the wall that you put. So really small example is if I were to ask you to walk around New York City completely butt naked, right? I said, hey, I want you to walk around New York City butt naked. You've been taught your whole life that you should wear clothes.
Right.
and you go out there, the only reason it would be uncomfortable for you is because of what you're taught. Say, right? It's true.
Yeah.
So you go out there and if you were to take off a shirt, maybe pants, whatever, I know it's a weird example, your body would literally start sweating.
Yeah.
This is the power of subconscious programming.
That's crazy. Never thought
So,
about that.
yeah, it's wild. So everything in your life is based off of the subconscious. So anyways, when you're training kids and you're training teams, you want to focus on the conversation of the values. So that way you're not putting these invisible, like you're not putting them in an invisible prison cell where they can't really make decisions. And they have this, like this, it's called a paradigm, but do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get this to my 2-year-old all the time because he likes to bite my 4-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do it like, I'm like, hey, sometimes I'll snap on him, like, hey, don't bite your brother. But then I'm like, hey, do you want your brother to bite you? It's not kind to, like, let's work on loving each other and not biting each other. Okay.
Right. There you go. It's not
Right.
about the biting. It's about the behavior. Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess the last thing I'm going to touch on real quick is probably something that you're best at and I really look up to is your consistency. Consistency is something that I have bad ADHD, so I'm always like, I've gotten better at taming it, but I'm always like seeing things and I'm tempted by things and I have to like pull myself back to center. But your consistency is probably unmatched. It's why you've achieved a level of success. That's why people listen to you. In fact, I think as a leader, consistency is one of the most important things that we can do because there's a distrust when we're not consistent, either with our word or with our actions, our behaviors. So like, what is it that has helped you become so consistent in your behaviors, your patterns?
Yeah, good question. Some random things about my consistency. I've journaled every single day, every day for I think about 5 years.
Dang.
Haven't missed a single day.
Wow.
I have drank a gallon of water every single day for about 2 years now. I've posted my Suffering Saturday workout every single Saturday for about 3.5 years, I think is what it is. And the time range on those, I'm within a few months, probably on all of them, but I'm spot on with the consistency. I haven't missed a single day on all 3 of those. So those are like weird things that I've done.
That's insane.
But how did I get there? I didn't start off consistent with some of them. Journaling was one that I had a little bit of ups and some downs with, and until I really locked it in, made the decision I was going to do it no matter what. But what'll help somebody out is I'm not a super freak at consistency. I think that what I've done is I'm a little bit of a unconscious competent because what I do is I build in structure into my life that keeps me consistent. Okay. And I naturally do that. So before I make a decision on something that I'm going to do consistently, I make sure I have a structure that's going to force me to do it when I don't want to. All right. So for example, Suffering Saturday was one. The reason I created Suffering Saturday and started sharing it online was because I wanted a forcing function that would make me do something every single Saturday. And I knew if I started sharing it on social on Saturday, I would build up this internal pressure for myself to where I had to keep doing it. And I wouldn't want to let myself and others down. So structures with the water is the same type of thing. I had a conversation with my MMA trainer and I was going into training and I was basically just shriveling on the inside. I was so dehydrated, right? He was like he was like stretching me out. We were running into a lot of problems with my mobility. He's like, bro, you got to drink more water. How much water have you drank today? I was like, I haven't drank anything. He's like, when's the last time you drank water? I was like, 2 days ago. He's like, shit, 2 days ago. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a Ranger. You know what I mean? So I made an agreement with him. I said, hey, how about this? If I don't drink a gallon of water, you get to roll me out with a barbell.
Oh,
okay. And so that's really tough to do. And I committed, we shook hands on it. I value my word. I'm always trying to live up to my word. And so I put repercussions in to keep myself on course. So for me, when I make a decision on I'm going to do something consistently, I have an idea of how long I want to do it for. And then I try to build in some type of structure that keeps me accountable. I do have things in my life that I haven't done consistently. And I allow myself grace and I give myself test periods to do some of those things. Like for example, I was doing cardio, start your day with cardio every single day. Right. And that was a season of my life. I wasn't committed to doing that for my entire life. I said, hey, I'm going to do this for 30 days, 60 days. And I'm going to tell people that I'm doing it. That's one of my additional accountability things that I do. I tell people. And I always try to tell them after I've done the first time, like, I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to tell you, do it. Now I'm going to tell you, not tell you, then try to do it. And no, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So I think for consistency for me, that's what it comes down to, is building in personal accountability systems for yourself, putting some pressure on yourself, and then having those repercussions. And on things you're not sure you're going to commit to long-term, just make a test period to them.
That's good, man. Yeah. Cause that's something I've struggled with my whole life is consistency. Like it'll be things that I'm very connected to, but like I can waver. And that's, it's something I know is one of my biggest flaws.
One other thing that somebody could do if you're really working on something that you want to build consistency in is take a macro look at your life versus a micro. Like, for example, if maybe we're talking about fruits and greens, SP fruits and greens, we're like, hey man, I want to take these every single day. That's my goal. Right. And I've been kind of going up and down with them, whatever. Right. But if I take a macro look at my year, how many times did I fall off? How many weeks did I fall off? How many days did I fall off? And I kind of start conceptualizing that. What that allows me to do is I think in days, I think in weeks, I think in months, and I think in years. So if I'm imperfect on my 30-day, whatever it is, challenge that I'm putting together where I'm going to do my SP greens, and that happens, well, now I shift my mindset to multiple months. And then I shift my mindset to the year. I was like, okay, let me just get through this entire year and see how well I can do. And then from that, it gives me an incentive to do better the following year. So I'm basically, what I'm working on is progress until I can lock it in. And over time, you just develop the ability to create consistency is what it does.
Yeah, that's good. I've when I think about it, I've done the same thing in my life with like cold showering. Like there was a point where I cold bathed or cold shower for like a year straight, and then I would miss a couple. But yeah, when you take the 30,000 foot view and you pull back, like you're able to see a little bit better. So that's
the last thing on that is just like when you're getting to a point where things are starting to fizzle in something that you're doing, there has to be a clear decision that's made. Okay. The way to create inconsistency is to not be decisive. Okay. So if I'm starting to fall off on some things, I need to have a conversation with myself on whether or not the cold shower is something that I want to do every single day. Do I really want to do this every single day? Like meditating for me was that for a period of time. I was like, I had a really hard time meditating. It took me a while to build up and be able to sit down for 20 minutes and then build up and do 10 minutes a day for 7 days. And then I had these streaks where I was doing it all the time. And then I got to a point where I was like, I'm really just forcing this. I'm like, I don't want to do it like this anymore. And I just made the conscious decision to say no. And I'm going to do it differently now moving forward. And I think a lot of people, they don't do that. They don't make the decision. And so then they just live in guilt.
Yeah. And that's the worst part about it is like, you feel the guilt of like, you miss a workout, you miss something, whatever, you feel guilty about it. But that actually like pulls you farther away from, the long-term success in it is the feeling of guilt, I think.
Yeah,
it's not about the failure of the action it's not about the action, it's how you feel about the action, right? That actually makes a difference. So like I could have like missed a day or 3 days in a row working out, but if I feel like a failure and I feel guilty about it, that's more detrimental and damaging.
Yeah, because you're reinforcing a disempowering belief about yourself, right? I'm not consistent. I'm not blah, 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 whatever that is. And that doesn't make you feel good, it doesn't build your self-esteem. But if I fail something, like my action plan is one thing. I got every single day I write out 5 things I don't want to do that are tied to my 4 goals, right? That's how I stay accountable to myself with my goals, my business, my personal life. I built up and I got 99 days in a row and I missed day 100. Okay. I thought I marked something off. I fell asleep. I woke back up, checked the thing, and I was like, right. And instead of saying like, I suck, I'm not going to be consistent, I said, okay, this is a challenge now. Now I got to beat 99 freaking days. Okay. So instead of dwelling on it, it's a reframe, which is what you're talking about. But you have to ask yourself, like, you have to have that conversation with yourself. Am I getting closer? Like that's what it is for me. If I've messed something up, I'm like, okay, roger that. How can I get closer now? This has got through the failure. How can I get closer?
Yeah, that's good, man. That's real good. All advice that I needed. So thank you.
I think the people are hard on themselves, man. And I think that you hear that all the time, progress over perfection.
Yeah.
And I think that's the core of it. It's just like constantly, and not bullshit, like progress, like where you're like rah-rahing yourself for constantly coming up short. And you're like, no, man, it's progress. It's progress. It's progress. It's like, no, like just what does the data say? Am I getting better? Yes or no? No, I did. You are getting better. Okay. Then I'm chasing progress. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's huge is like the progress, but 100% no kidding, that don't bullshit yourself. Like stop, don't sugarcoat things and make yourself feel good about it when if you're actually not giving yourself the all, or you're not, you're not committing the work.
Yeah.
This conversation was great because this is like, a space that I'm stepping into is like, there's so many tactics and strategies to leadership, to business building, but I believe that it's 80% psychology and mindset. And I think you would probably agree to that. And so when you look, I got on this podcast to talk to you about leadership, and we talked a lot about mindset and psychology, because it's really like this drives everything. Like if this is bad, or if this isn't optimized, then we can't really be as successful as we want to be. We can have all the tactics and the knowledge in the world, but if we don't have the ability to apply it in a good mental fashion, then we're kind of worthless. So I love that the conversation went this way, and it's what you're absolutely the best at too. Is it's what you treat. You teach people business and all this stuff, leadership, but really you're just teaching mindset. That's all you're teaching.
That's the key, man.
Yeah. So this turned out to be perfect, man. But I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your expertise. I always enjoy spending time talking to you, learning from you. I always learn something new when I talk to you. So I appreciate you, brother. And it was an honor to have you back on the first podcast moving forward. So any last messages or thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's just Jeramiah Solven, at Jeramiah Solven, JeramiahSolven. And then my only call to action for everybody here is like, don't be one of those like casual observers. Okay. Take something today, whatever it was that really resonated with you, and put it into action. Do me that favor. Do me that solid. Don't sacrifice the gift that this information was or don't disrespect it by just allowing it to be information, not do anything with it. There's something in here that I know can change your life if you just focus on it just a little bit. And so that'd be my only message to the audience, is just put something into action today, whether it's step into a position of a bigger responsibility, whether it's work on your consistency, something like that really stood out to you. And that's all that I have. Thanks for having me on, Nathan.
Yeah, of course. And I love that you say that, because I've watched him on his page, and he will basically say, and this is so huge. He'll say, like, if you're here just to consume my content, do nothing with it, then just unfollow me. And I like that you stand firm in that, because that's so true. Like, so many people are just consuming stuff and doing nothing with it. Like, the challenge from you and I is that you take this information and do something with it. Don't just be a consumer. Like so many people are just on this thing, just consuming. It's like, well, when are you actually going to do something about it? Like do something that changes your life. Do something that changes your family's life. Do something that changes your business. Like, do something about it. And there's plenty of a wealth of knowledge, both on your page, my page, and on this podcast, for someone to do one thing that will change your dynamic. So I appreciate your time, brother. We'll talk to you soon. What's your last question? What's your confidence of Chandler for the weekend?
Oh man, Chandler's gonna knock out, man. I wouldn't be surprised. So 1-2 outcomes. You'll knock him out within the first round. Second outcome is that he's just gonna grind the guy down until he's got nothing left in the tank, and then TKO. Those are the 2 outcomes I predict.
Either way, it's going to be a brawl.
Yeah,
because they're both ruthless. So it's going to be fun to watch. But I'll be shooting you a text on Saturday night.
All right, bro. Thanks for having me on. Later, guys.
See ya.